Okay, so yesterday we got to test our boat on whether we could make it sink with a lot of pennies or how many pennies it took to make our boat sink. We got to build it and draw it and make predictions, a hypothesis. So today we're going to choose other things at home to test them and see, are they going to float or are they going to sink? So, the first job is to go around your house and find things that you want to test. 10 things. Now, remember, you want to ask your family if it's okay, if they can get wet, because you don't want to grab something that's not yours. You want to make sure it's okay. And that's what I did. So I went around and grabbed 10 things in my classroom that I could test whether it was going to sink or float. And then I got 2 pieces of paper. One piece of paper I wrote sink. And I even drew a picture of something at the bottom of the water. There's the water line and there's the bottom. On another piece of paper I wrote float. And then I drew a picture of something floating on top of the water. So you're going to have 2 pieces of paper like this, one that says sink and one that says float. Then we're going to make a hypothesis. Let's take a look at some of my items that I found. All right. So one thing that I found was a pecan. Have you ever seen any of these? It's a type of nut, a pecan. Pecan or pecan, there you go. That's one thing. I went outside and I found a rock. It's still even dirty because I had to dig it up out of the dirt. A rock. I have a piece of wood. Look at that. Piece of wood. And I'm being very gentle because I don't want to get a splinter. I got one of my toys. I always pretend that this is my friend, Shaquanti. And I'm going to put her right here. This is a crayon. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of my Legos. 6. A comb. 7. A rubber band. 8. A pencil. That's 9. And I saved the best for last. A Snickers candy from Halloween. That's going to be 10. So there are my 10 items that I'm going to test. Now I've got to think about it. Are they going to sink or are they going to float? So let's look. We're going to make a hypothesis. We're going to go over each one and we're going to sort them. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and start with my pecan. It feels kind of heavy. It looks like a boat. I think it's gonna float. What about my rock? Oh, my rock feels heavy and like, see how it just bangs on the table? I think this one's going to sink. What about wood? Well, the wood looks like the same color as my pecan. Maybe it's going to float. Here's my friend, Shaquanti. Oh, look. She even has a Band-Aid on her knee. Shaquanti's a good swimmer, so I think she's going to float. My crayon. Ooh, I think that one's going to sink. It sounds kind of hollow. Maybe this one's going to float. I wonder if it's going to float like this, or if it's going to float like this, or if it's going to float like this. But I think it's going to float. Comb. I think this one will sink. Rubber band. It feels kind of light. I guess this one will float. Pencil. That one feels kind of hard. I think it's going to sink. Candy. It feels kind of hard too. Maybe that will sink. I have made a hypothesis for all my items. Now it's time to test them. All right, in order to start testing, I went and got some water. And I got some napkins because sometimes when we're working with water, we get wet. And sometimes things get wet. So I have these right here next to me just in case. I'm going to put this down so we can see. Here's the water. And here are my two predictions. I think I'm going to go from one to the other. So let's test. Let's test the rock. I said the rock would sink. Let's test it. Are you ready? Look. I was right. When I put the rock in water, the rock sank. Well, there you have it. Time to pull the rock out, and we'll put it over here with sink. There we go. Now let's come over here to float. Let's see if my friend Shakwanti will float. That was what my hypothesis was. That was my guess. Now let's test it. Let's go swimming. What? My friend Shakwanti sank to the bottom. She is a toy made out of plastic. Well, there you have it. My guess was that she would float, and she sank. That's okay. That's okay. Let's dry her off, and now I'm going to move her over to sink because that's what happened. Let's come over here. I'm going to grab my crayon. I said that the crayon would sink. Now let's test it and see. Oh, look at that. My crayon did not sink. My crayon is on the top of the water. It is floating. Well, there you have it. My crayon floats. Let's move my crayon over here with my floating items. I'm going to get a little paper towel and I'll put it right here. Okay. Now let's pick one over here. Let's do my Lego. I said that my Lego would float. Let's see. Oh, look at that. What do you think? It is floating. My hypothesis was the Lego would float, and it did. There you have it. I'm going to put my Lego over here with float. Now let's come test my comb. I said that my comb would sink. Let's test it. Put it in the water. Wow! My comb is floating. Well, there you have it. When I tested my comb, it floated. So I'm going to move it over here to floating. Fun. Okay, let's come over here to float. Let's test the rubber band. I said the rubber band would float. Let's test it in the water. Wow, look at it down here. The rubber band sank in the water. Well, there you have it. The rubber band's going on the sink side. Now let's come over here. Let's test my pencil. Oh, let's see if it'll fit. Oh, it didn't fit. Well, if you look, the tip won't go down. I think that my pencil is floating. Well, there you have it. The test says that it belongs on the float side. Now let's come over here to my float. Let's test the piece of wood. Okay. It's floating. It's on top of the water. Well, there you have it. My wood floats. I'm going to put it over here. Now let's test the candy, my Snickers. Let's put it in the water. I said that it would sink. Let's see. My Snickers floats. Well, there you have it. My Snickers comes over to my floats. Here's my last object, my pecan. I said that it would float. Let's see what happens. It's floating. Well, there you have it. My pecan floats. I'm going to get my napkins to dry my hands. I only had 3 things that sank to the bottom. Everything else floated. That was fun. Now it's your turn. You are going to make a paper with sink and float. You're going to find 10 things to test. You're going to get a bowl of water, and then you're going to test them. I love to see your pictures. All you have to do is click the add button. Add your pictures with the camera, with the picture of the camera. And when you've added all the pictures that you want to share, click the green check mark. I'd also like to hear you tell me about what you thought. Have fun.